Hello and welcome back to our series on the Psalms. This week we're going to look at an essential theme in the Psalms, trust. Now, the psalmists talk about how much they trust God just all over the book of Psalms. I mean, it's practically in every psalm, which makes it a major theme in the book of Psalms. But there are some psalms that are dedicated almost entirely to the subject of trust. All right, so we see it woven into psalms of praise and psalms of ascents. We see it woven into laments and imprecatory psalms. But there are some psalms that just go in just all the way on trust. The entire psalm is focused on trust. So we're going to focus on those kinds of psalms this week. Naturally, a lot of these psalms are framed as praise psalms, but as we're going to see, they're also framed in some other ways as well. Some of them are framed as wisdom psalms. Many of them also include elements of lament and imprecation, because the psalmist's trust in God is held over and against the fear of the enemy. So let's start first off with a longer psalm. All right, so we're not going to sing this one. But we're going to use this as our jumping off point just to show what a variety we have in the trust psalms. We're going to start with Psalm 37, which is framed almost entirely as a wisdom psalm. So as we read through Psalm 37, you'll see the elements of wisdom. When we read it, when we sing it, or when we pray it, we are addressing each other and ourselves. You'll see that in the way that the psalm is put together. The psalm is advice, it's wisdom to us. And that advice, that wisdom, is to place our trust in God. And it starts with an admonition that I think we're going to find valuable. So let's go ahead and turn to the psalm together. Psalm 37. Fret not yourself because of evildoers. Be not envious of wrongdoers. For they will soon fade like the grass and wither like the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and befriend faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will act. He will bring forth your righteousness as the light, and your justice as the noonday. Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices. Refrain from anger, and forsake wrath. Fret not yourself, it tends only to evil. For the evildoer shall be cut off, but those who wait for the Lord shall inherit the land. In just a little while the wicked will be no more. Though you look carefully at his place, he will not be there. But the meek shall inherit the land, and delight themselves in abundant peace. The wicked plots against the righteous and gnashes his teeth at him, but the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he sees that his day is coming. The wicked draw the sword and bend their bows to bring down the poor and needy, to slay those whose way is upright. Their sword shall enter their own heart, and their bows shall be broken. Better is the little that the righteous has than the abundance of many wicked. For the arms of the wicked shall be broken, but the Lord upholds the righteous. The Lord knows the days of the blameless, and their heritage will remain forever. They are not put to shame in evil times. In the day of famine they will have abundance. But the wicked will perish. The enemies of the Lord are like the glory of the pastures. They vanish. Like smoke, they vanish away. The wicked borrows but does not pay back. But the righteous is generous and gives. For those blessed by the Lord shall inherit the land, but those cursed by him shall be cut off. The steps of a man are established by the Lord when he delights in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be cast headlong, for the Lord upholds his hand. I have been young, and now I am old. Yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, or his children begging for bread. He is ever lending generously, and his children become a blessing. Turn away from evil, and do good, so shall you dwell forever. For the Lord loves justice. He will not forsake his saints. They are preserved forever. but the children of the wicked shall be cut off. The righteous shall inherit the land and dwell upon it forever. The mouth of the righteous utters wisdom, and his tongue speaks justice. The law of his God is in his heart. His steps do not slip. The wicked watches for the righteous and seeks to put him to death. The Lord will not abandon him to his power, or let him be condemned when he is brought to trial. Wait for the Lord, and keep his way, and he will exalt you to inherit the land. You will look on when the wicked are cut off. I have seen a wicked, ruthless man spreading himself like a green laurel tree, but he passed away, and behold, he was no more. Though I sought for him, he could not be found. Mark the blameless, behold the upright, for there is a future for the man of peace. But transgressors shall altogether be destroyed. The future of the wicked shall be cut off. The salvation of the righteous is from the Lord. He is their stronghold in the time of trouble. The Lord helps them and delivers them. He delivers them from the wicked and saves them because they take refuge in him. All right, so you can see that the entire psalm is about placing your trust in the Lord and its advice. Put your trust in God. You hear this refrain over and over again. Fret not yourself because of the wicked. All right, that's the wisdom of the psalm. Don't fret because of the wicked. Instead, place your trust in the Lord, and the Lord will take care of you. The Lord will... we see it framed in terms of inheriting the land. Right? That's what we've been studying that somewhat in our Law of Moses class. How that is basically the Old Testament's way of expressing salvation and eternal life. If you place your trust in God, you have those things as a reward, whereas the wicked don't. So the whole thing is about trust. And it kicks off with this admonition: don't fret over the wicked. The trouble with focusing on the wicked is that it ultimately makes us like them. Whereas placing our trust in the Lord puts us in a position to become more like him. And you see that play out throughout the psalm. There's this admonition not just to trust the Lord instead of fretting over the wicked, but also on top of that, not to become wicked yourself, but instead to be righteous. Because those things, one thing follows from another in that. Right, that's why we need the trust psalms, because it's so easy to get really caught up in all of the bad that happens in the world. It's always been easy to do this. It's especially easy for us, I think, to get inordinately caught up in the culture wars. We see it happen all the time. In fact, I hadn't planned about talking about this because it just happened just moments before I started recording this video. But John MacArthur, the pastor at Grace Community Church, recently had an interview with someone at the Liberty University Falkirk Center. And he was talking about a phone call that he received from the president shortly after they resumed services at Grace Community Church. And the president was congratulating him on reopening. And one of the things that John MacArthur said in the interview that he told the president was that, what were his words? Any true believer is going to side with you in this election. The very beginning of that is a word-for-word quote, what he said. Any true believer. Right, those were the terms that he used. Any true believer is going to vote a specific way during the election. And friends, if we start prescribing, like, if you vote for Joe Biden, or on the other hand, if you vote for Donald Trump, you are not a Christian. Where on earth do we find that in the scriptures? Or we have gotten ourselves too bound up in politics and too bound up in the culture wars, and have allowed it to basically substitute itself in for true righteousness and true religion. And that's ultimately the result of fretting yourself over the wicked. Right? We're so worried about what candidate X or candidate Y is going to do, and you see this happen on both sides. Right? John MacArthur happens to be guilty of it in terms of fretting over Joe Biden. We see all kinds of people on it, just a parade of people on a daily basis fretting over what Donald J. Trump is going to do. Right? We see it again, just swarms of people just fretting over what this or that candidate is going to do. Right? And the psalm steps in, and this is a timely psalm for us. The psalm steps in and says, don't fret yourself over that. Trust in God instead. All right, now, we still have choices to make, as far as the election goes. But the frame from which we should be approaching all of this is trust in the Lord, so that we don't get caught up so much in the culture wars that they start driving us and they start driving our faith instead of us allowing our faith to drive everything else. And whenever we do that sort of thing, whenever we allow the worries, like whether we're talking politics, culture wars, or any other sort of worry over what the wicked are doing, whenever we allow those things to do the driving, we start reacting to things instead of acting based on our principles. Right? We allow the wicked to dictate the rules of the game, as it were, or the terms of engagement. And at that point, we've basically already lost. Right? And that's the irony of it. If we allow ourselves to just inordinately fret over these kinds of things. And that's why we need the trust psalms, to remind us what the real framework ought to be. You've got all of these people who ultimately, have forgotten who is on the throne and how he exercises his rule. And they've forgotten the psalmist's wisdom that he shares in verse 11. But the meek shall inherit the land and delight themselves in abundant peace. That ought to sound familiar, right? I mean, Jesus is quoting that in the Beatitudes. This message of meekness is this message of trust in God. And that's why we need psalms like the trust psalms, to ground us, remind us about who's in charge, remind us of what's real, remind us that all of the things that we look at in the world that we think are directing and guiding and shaping everything, they're not really in charge. God ultimately is. So, we've gotten our first taste of the trust psalms. Like I said, the Psalm 37 is a long one, so we're not going to sing it. There are, I think, some metrical adaptations of it. Really, really long ones, though. If you are interested in singing Psalm 37, I am certain that you can find a good long rendition of it in the Scottish Psalter. For now, let's turn our attention to another trust psalm, Psalm 46. Now, Psalm 46 is among the most famous of the trust psalms, and we can partially credit that to Martin Luther, because he adapted Psalm 46 into what we now know as a mighty fortress. And it's a vivid adaptation with a really catchy tune. But the psalm itself is also very vivid. Let's go ahead and turn to Psalm 46 and read it together. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear. Though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling. Selah. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God will help her when the morning dawns. The nations rage, the kingdoms totter. He utters his voice, the earth melts. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Selah. Come, behold the works of the Lord, how he has brought desolations on the earth. He makes wars cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Selah. All right, so you can see that it's framed as a psalm of descriptive praise. So we're talking about just the goodness of God. But it's also something of a battle hymn. The incredible thing to me about this psalm is we need to consider who wrote it. Now, I didn't include the inscription up on the screen, so you would need to actually have your Bible out in front of you, open, to have seen this ahead of time. But go look at the inscription in front of verse 1 in Psalm 46. The inscription tells us that it is one of the psalms of the sons of Korah. Now remember who the sons of Korah are. You might remember studying this in our Law of Moses class a while back. We're talking about the descendants of the Korah. Right? This is not a different Korah we're talking about. It is the rebel Korah, whose name these men bear. It's the sons of that Korah. And remember, Korah himself was taken alive down into Sheol, but his sons were spared. And their descendants ended up serving with distinction in the temple gates. Now, with that in mind, go back and reread the first lines of the psalm. Right, go back to verse 1 and read through verse 2. God is our strength. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth gives way. That hits a little different, doesn't it? All right, because the earth did give way under Korah and took him alive down into Sheol. And yet, the sons of Korah have grown so greatly in their trust of the Lord that they are able to say, even if the same thing happened to us, we would still trust in God. Right, the sons of Korah, and by the way, they can trace that back. You can trace it back in the lineage of the sons of Korah to that instance, because the sons of Korah, of all people, know what God's grace and faithfulness look like. Their very lives are a testament to it. Right? By all accounts, they should not exist. And yet they do, because God had mercy on the house of Korah. Because God is faithful and God is trustworthy. For whatever reason, we know that Dathan and Abiram, their entire household was eaten up. They didn't have any descendants who were spared. It was only Korah, the ringleader, whose sons were spared. Why did God do that? We're never really told clearly why he did that. And yet clearly there is a payoff to it. That we have these psalms preserved for us from the sons of Korah, who were able to look back at their lineage and say, God has been good to us, and we can put our trust in him. So let us take comfort in our gracious and faithful God. And we're going to sing an adaptation of Psalm 46 that is, well, if you consider Luther's, well, I should back up a little bit. If you consider a mighty fortress, as we have it in our hymnals, it is not all that close to the text of Psalm 46. Like, you can, looking at them side by side, you can tell, like, hey, there's some influence from this psalm onto this song, but it's a pretty loose adaptation, at least as we have it in our English hymnals. I don't know if that's the fault of the translation, or if it goes back to Luther's original in German. I don't know how faithfully he adapted Psalm 46 into German. So what I want us to do this week, as we consider Psalm 46, is we're going to sing a closer English adaptation, something that is more faithful to our English text of Psalm 46. But we're going to keep that catchy tune that Martin Luther came up with. So we have a hymn, we have an adaptation that is in the same meter. In fact, it is written specifically for Martin Luther's tune, Ein feste Burg. So let's go ahead and look at it together. It's called God is Our Refuge and Our Strength, an adaptation of Psalm 46. Verse 1. God is our refuge and our strength, a helper ever near us. We will not fear, though earth be moved, for God is nigh to cheer us. Although the mountains quake and earth's foundations shake, though angry billows roar and break against the shore, our mighty God will hear us. Verse 2. God's city is forever blessed, with living waters welling. Since God is there, she stands unmoved, mid tumults round her swelling. God speaks, and all is peace. From war the nations cease. The Lord of hosts is nigh. Our Father's God most high is our eternal dwelling. Verse 3. Behold what God has done on earth. His wrath brings desolation. His grace, commanding wars to cease, brings peace to every nation. Be still, for he is Lord, by all the earth adored. The Lord of hosts is nigh. Our Father's God most high is our strong habitation. All right, so one thing we have to admit that Luther held on to pretty well is the namesake of the song. A mighty fortress is our God. You see that image a couple of times in the ESV in Psalm 46. Wonderful image, and that's what makes this a trust psalm. Is it this expression of faith that God is our fortress. Right? He's the one who's going to shield us and protect us. He's the one that we can put our faith and our trust in. Let's go ahead and sing God is our refuge and our strength. We'll bring verse 1 back up, and it is to the tune of A Mighty Fortress. God is our refuge and our strength, a helper ever near us. We will not fear though earth be moved, for God is nigh to cheer us. Although the mountains quake and earth's foundations shake, though angry billows roar and break against the shore, our mighty God will hear us. God's city is forever blessed, with living waters welling. Since God is there, she stands unmoved, mid tumults round her swelling. God speaks, and all is peace. From war the nations cease. The Lord of hosts is nigh. Our Father's God most high is our eternal dwelling. Behold what God has done on earth. His wrath brings desolation. His grace, commanding wars to cease, brings peace to every nation. Be still, for he is Lord, by all the earth adored. The Lord of hosts is nigh. Our Father's God most high is our strong habitation. All right, Psalm 46 is a wonderful, wonderful psalm. So I encourage you, one way or the other. I mean, A Mighty Fortress is a fine hymn. One way or the other, that is an excellent psalm to memorize, to commit to heart. The last psalm that we're going to look at this week is Psalm 11. So let's go ahead and read Psalm 11 together. In the Lord I take refuge. How can you say to my soul, flee like a bird to your mountain? For behold, the wicked bend the bow. They have fitted their arrow to the string to shoot in the dark at the upright in heart. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? The Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. His eyes see, his eyelids test the children of man. The Lord tests the righteous, but his soul hates the wicked and the one who loves violence. Let him rain coals on the wicked. Fire and sulfur and a scorching wind shall be the portion of their cup. For the Lord is righteous. He loves righteous deeds. The upright shall behold his face. All right, so it's a short psalm, but in these few verses, it's only 7 verses long, and in these few verses, Psalm 11 hits a lot of notes. Right, you can catch hints of lament underneath the opening lines, that there's this fear that the psalmist could be giving into. But he opens the psalm with, "In the Lord I take refuge." But apparently there's some question about whether he should take refuge in the Lord. Should he put his trust in the Lord? He has somebody apparently saying to him, "Flee like a bird to your mountain." Get out of Dodge. Get up and run. Behold, the wicked bend the bow. They have fitted their arrow to the string to shoot in the dark at the upright in heart. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? All right, we can hear a lot of familiar worries in that statement. All right, and the psalmist is asking us, how can you say that to me? All of that. So all of that we just read is somebody else speaking to the psalmist about how things have just gotten real bad. The wicked, all these criminals. You can think of it, by the way, in terms of the sorts of worries that we have been hearing this year and over the last several years. Things about crime and things are just getting bad. The bad people are taking over the institutions. In fact, you can even hear that worry echoed in what the psalmist. He's got to be some advisor or something, or a friend, whoever this guy is who's talking to the psalmist. You hear him say, "If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do?" In other words, this guy he's looking around and he just sees everything collapsing. And if we brought this guy to the modern day, I feel pretty confident that he would have exactly the same attitude, right? If it were a couple of months ago, he'd be worrying about how bad the economy was doing. Now he would be worried about the Postal Service. He would be worried about, who knows if this guy is liberal or conservative or whatever, but he would be worried about the other side taking over the institutions, right? Whatever side he's on, right? If he's a conservative, the liberals are taking over the institutions. They're in the schools. They're, doing this, that, and the other thing. If he was a liberal, he'd be talking about how the conservatives are destroying all of these American institutions like the post office and bringing dishonor and shame to the White House. This guy, again, would be completely flipping his lid over all the things that he sees going on around him. At least he is in the psalmist's time. I don't see any reason to think he would change if we brought him forward to our time. And so we catch hints of a lament underneath that things are bad in the psalmist's day and age. They're bad in his life. But we catch other notes in this psalm as well. Verse 6 breaks out into a full imprecation against the wicked. Right? It's really vivid. Right? Let him rain coals on the wicked, fire and sulfur, and a scorching wind shall be the portion of their cup. He's just... that's the very definition of an imprecatory psalm, an imprecation, a curse. God destroy these bad guys. So we hit a lot of notes in this, but everything is framed together in the message of trust. from the very opening line, "In the Lord I take refuge." The psalmist places his trust in the Lord because he knows who the Lord is, right? And he knows where the Lord is. Right? That's a powerful confession towards the end of I guess it's around the midpoint of the psalm. The Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. That's a good confession to take with you on a day-to-day basis. You see something crazy happen in the news, you see something disheartening happen, just tell yourself, the Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. The Lord is sitting on his throne. He's still king, he's still in charge. The psalmist recognizes that. The psalmist recognizes that from his throne the Lord sees everything. He proves the righteous. He destroys the wicked. Everything is well. Right? Everything might look like it's a mess, but ultimately everything is going to be okay. That's the message of Psalm 11. And like Psalm 46, this is an excellent short psalm to memorize. Again, it's only 7 verses, and we've got a really good metrical adaptation of it from the 1912 Psalter. This one that we're going to look at is written in a meter that we've not looked at yet. 11, 11, 11, 11. So every line has 11 syllables in it, but it is set to a pretty common tune called Foundation. You probably remember the tune. Do 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 do. Really easy hymn to remember, easy tune to remember. And so we've got 3 verses that get the whole of Psalm 11 in them. So let's read them together. Verse 1. In God will I trust, though my counselors say, "O flee as a bird to your mountain away." The wicked are strong and the righteous are weak. Foundations are shaken, yet God will I seek. And by the way, we should notice here that remember, quotation marks are a recent English innovation. We don't know exactly where this guy's speech ends. Whoever adapted Psalm 11 here is reading this as the psalmist himself understanding that the wicked are in a strong position and the righteous are in a weak position, that the institutions are shaken, right? The foundations are shaken, yet God will I seek. Even with all let's stipulate, let's confess, let's admit everything's going to hell in a handbasket, as it were, by all appearances. Yet I will still trust God. Very, very similar to the confession of the sons of Korah. I'm going to trust in God even if the earth were to give way. Even if the ground were to swallow me up, to try to take me alive down into Sheol, still will I trust in God. So wonderful confession. Verse 2. The Lord in his temple shall ever abide. His throne is eternal, whatever betide. The children of men he beholds from on high, the wicked to punish, the righteous to try. Verse 3. The Lord is most righteous. The Lord loves the right. The evil he hates and will surely requite. The wicked his anger will drive from their place. The upright in rapture shall gaze on his face. All right, so pretty easy adaptation here. Again, 3 short verses. This is an excellent, excellent psalm to memorize about placing our trust in God. So let's go ahead and we'll go through the hymn again, singing it to the tune Foundation. In God will I trust, though my counselors say, "O flee as a bird to your mountain away." The wicked are strong and the righteous are weak. Foundations are shaken, yet God will I seek. The Lord in his temple shall ever abide. His throne is eternal, whatever betide. The children of men he beholds from on high, the wicked to punish, the righteous to try. The Lord is most righteous, the Lord loves the right, the evil he hates, and will surely requite. The wicked his anger will drive from their place, the upright in rapture shall gaze on his face. I hope that our study this week was edifying and useful to you. The call this week is to place your trust wholly in God. Salvation only comes through Him, through His Son, Jesus of Nazareth, the Messiah, the chosen one. The call is to discern the places in your life where you're relying on things other than God and His Son. There are plenty of those places, right? It's really just up to us to think through our lives and be honest with ourselves. Where else are we trying to place trust? Are we placing trust in money? We try placing trust in position, in power, in our own righteousness, in our spouses, in our children. There's all kinds of idols that we can substitute in for God. Good things that we can turn into idols, even. Discern the places in your life where you are relying on things other than God and His Son. Reject them as a source of hope and strength, and instead lean on the salvation that God has supplied us through His Son, Jesus Christ. If you've not come to know Jesus, and if you have not followed Him, we invite you to find a Church of Christ near you. If you're in the St. Petersburg, Florida area, we're the 14th Avenue Church of Christ. And whatever church you go to, whatever Church of Christ that you go to, speak with the preacher or the elders or any of the members there, and everyone would be happy to study the way of Jesus with you. And then we encourage you, as you understand the call of Jesus and the need to follow Him and the trust that you can place in Him, then repent of your sins, confess Jesus as Lord, and be baptized into His death, burial, and resurrection for the remission of your sins. So that's it for this week. Next week, I think we're doing Songs of Enthronement. So we look forward to seeing you then. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.